For this video, we'll be adding and subtracting and multiplying with square roots. A rule for square roots is to be a like term. The same thing has to be underneath the square root to combine them. So the 21 is an unlike term. These two match up. If you remember from before, like terms, you only change the coefficient. You don't change the thing underneath the square root, or you don't change the x or any of that. You only change the coefficient. So 7 and the -4 make a 3. The square root 14 stays with it because we don't change that. And then the square root of 21 is next to it. These two are unlike terms, so we leave it like that. Now, they're not always that nice and easy. If you look at the second one, it's the square root of 28. From the first video, you know to break down 28 either with a tree or by using the perfect squares. So whichever way you like better, you can do that. That would be 2 times 2, and that would be your 7. There's your pair. So that's where 2 square root 7 comes. So this problem, we have 2 square root 7. We just found out that square root of 28 is 2 square root 7. When you add them together, you only add the coefficient. You don't change the square root 7. So the answer is 4 square root 7. Last one here. This says 3 times the square root of 63, and that'll come up in a second. All right, 63 we need to break down. 63 is 9 times 7. Square root of 9 times the square root of 7, which is 3 square root 7. So your problem is 2 square root 7, and then you have 3 times what we just figured out to be 3 square root 7. So this is 2 square root 7 plus 9 square root 7, because those are both outside the square root. They can multiply together, which is 11 square root 7. And that's your final answer. All right, if you look at the last few. The first one is just one term multiplied by a binomial, which means you get to distribute. All right. 2 square root 3 is the first thing, because one is outside the square root, one is under the square root. And then the next one is the square root of 3 times the square root of 12, which is the square root of 36. 2 square root 3 plus the square root of 36 is 6. Those cannot combine together because they are not like terms. So it leaves it like that. All right, the next one is a binomial and a binomial. You can multiply by FOIL, box, distribute, vertically, all that fun stuff. Whatever way you like best. For this one, I'm going to FOIL. So I'm going to multiply the first terms, which is the square root of 2 and the square root of 2, which is the square root of 4. I'll write it as that for now, but if you remember, that's really just a 2. Plus the outside terms, square root of 2 and -3 square root 5, which will be -3 square root 10. All right, your inside terms are square root of 5 and the square root of 2. Those are right next to each other. That would be the square root of 10. And our lasts are the square root of 5 and -3 square root 5, which would be -3 square root of 25. All right, things you need to look for. Can you simplify anything? This thing you can over here. This is -3 times 5. Also look for, are there any like terms, which are these guys right here. So this is -3 square root 10 and the +1 square root 10, which would be -2 square root 10. -3 times 5 is -15. And then we can combine the 2 and the -15 to be -13 minus 2 square root 10. All right, this last one. It'll probably be helpful to write it twice, just so you can see it. This 2 tells you how many of these guys you have, which means you can write it twice. All right, I'll do a box for this one. Square root of 3, -4, square root of 3, -4. Your terms go on the outside. Then you fill in the box. This is the square root of 9 because you multiplied those together. This is -4 square root 3, -4 square root 3, and this would be -4 times -4 is 16. If you notice, these are going to be like terms because the square root of 9 is really just 3. And these guys are like terms. Oops, start erasing. These guys are like terms. Let me rewrite all that. These ones are like terms. And then these ended up being like terms because remember that was a 3. All right, so 16 times 3 is 19. -4 square root 3 plus -4 square root 3 is -8 square root 3 because we don't change what's underneath. And that is all.